Big news coming out of Louisville, Kentucky the last 2 days. Pat Kelsey was able to land two of the best transfers in this offseason's portal class, the first of which being Flory Bidunga, who is the number one rated center, along with being the number one overall rated transfer in this offseason's portal class. Flory Bidunga is what, from up to my knowledge, going to be making upwards of $4 to $4.5 million. I've heard the number get up to as high as $5 million to go with Jackson Shelstad, who is, I'd argue, a top 5 point guard that you'll find across this offseason's transfer portal. Now, as I mentioned, these two guys are being paid very handsomely to go out to Louisville, Kentucky to play for the Cardinals this upcoming season. But I do think that these two guys can definitely help solve some of the problems that we've seen across the Louisville Cardinals these past 2 seasons under Pat Kelsey. Now, to start with Flory Bidunga, obviously, we saw make a massive leap from what he was able to do production-wise from his freshman year, where he was coming off the bench for Hunter Dickinson, to what he was in his first year starting for the Jayhawks. Now, he averaged 13.3 points per game this past year to go along with 9 rebounds and nearly 2 assists on 64% shooting. Obviously, you're bringing in Flory because he is an otherworldly defender in the college game right now as the current landscape stacks up. He was the Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year. And while going into this past season, I felt he was more of a rim running big in terms of what he could provide you offensively, he definitely proved me wrong, where his post footwork had improved significantly from where it was as a freshman to where it was towards the end of this past season in 25-26. And I just think back to when number one Arizona came to Phog Allen Fieldhouse to take on the Jayhawks, and Flory Bidunga was time and time again able to finish over the size and the length that Arizona possessed this past year, going up against guys such as Koa Pete, Mo Krivas, and Ivan Korshenkov. Now, obviously, defense is still his strong suit, and that is by far what you are bringing Flory Bidunga in to be. He kind of solves the problem of Sanandra not being exactly what I expected him to pan out as, really, for the entirety of this past season under Pat Kelsey at Louisville. And I think Flory is obviously going to solve a lot of those problems. He's going to bring a level of athleticism. He's going to bring a level of pace that not many centers across college basketball allow you to play with, as well as just obviously a lot of experience, a lot of winning in big games at Phog Allen Fieldhouse. I think his play style definitely fits the ACC, very up and down, very isolation based. He's obviously not a guy that's going to be handling the ball and taking you one-on-one, but he's going to be able to provide you ample protection at the rim, and it's going to give your guards a lot more confidence knowing that they have a last line of defense in Flory Bidunga waiting at the rim to block shots. This guy's an otherworldly jumper for someone who is 6'10", 235 pounds. He obviously, I think, plays stronger than what his frame might suggest. And I think when you pair him with a guy like Jackson Shelstad, who has turned into a very strong passer over his last season at Oregon, along with the pace he's going to allow Louisville to be able to play with, this is going to be a great 1-2 punch that reminds me a lot of what we've seen from Texas Tech the last couple of seasons between Christian Anderson and JT Toppin. Now, obviously, you need to surround these two guys with shooting, but I'll kind of get back to that in a little bit to get into Jackson Shelstad. Jackson Shelstad is a really unique player to talk about here. I do think it's important to mention he only played 12 games this past season as he really struggled with injuries. Now, I think a real reason why Louisville prioritized getting Jackson Shelstad as one of their main transfer portal targets is because of the chance of them being able to get him a medical waiver to play an additional season on top of what we're going to see in 26 and 27. So you could potentially have Shelstad for 2 years. So I think that is a major reason why so many of the top flight programs around the country, specifically Louisville, really wanted Jackson Shelstad to commit. Now, this past season, the 12 games he played, he averaged 15.6 points per game, 3 rebounds, and nearly 5 assists on 40% shooting and 30% from beyond the arc. Now, obviously, the shooting splits don't look great, despite him averaging a career high in points per game and assists in the 12 games he played this last year. However, I do think when you look at his freshman and sophomore seasons, we kind of expected Jackson to take a little bit more of a jump than what we ended up seeing. He averaged just under 13 points per game as a freshman and just under 14 as a sophomore. Now, for calling it for what it was, Oregon was not very good this past year. And obviously him being hurt was a major reason why. They were able to retain both him and Nate Biddle, who had outstanding sophomore campaigns alongside each other. And unfortunately, just injuries got in the way of both those guys being able to have any sort of production whatsoever. I think having as much time as he has to be able to fully, I guess I should word this as get as close to 100% as possible, is definitely going to be super beneficial for what Louisville's can be next year. And kind of going back to the whole JT Top and Christian Anderson pairing that I mentioned earlier with how Texas Tech under Grant McCaslin's been constructing the rosters the last couple of seasons. I think, again, it's very obvious you have a great two-man setup between Shelstad and Bidunga. However, you need to surround them with shooting. And they are supposedly bringing back Adrian Woolley, who was a Kennesaw State transfer and played through ups and downs in his first season in ACC play under Pat Kelsey at Louisville. I think Adrian Woolley towards the end of the year showed flashes of him really starting to kind of get back under his feet and playing the way we saw him play at Kennesaw State. And I think that's a great core of three guys to have going into this next season. And if you surround these guys with shooters similar to what we saw this past year with Texas Tech, where you're bringing in Donovan Atwell, you're bringing in Luan Watts, you're bringing in Jalen Petty, then Louisville is going to be in a great spot to contend for both an ACC regular season tournament title as well as an NCAA tournament title and bringing home a national championship to Louisville. Now, obviously, we kind of got to wait and see. Last year, me and Josh highlighted Louisville as one of the early offseason winners following what they were able to bring in out of the transfer portal in Ryan Conwell, Adrian Woolley, Isaac McNeely, and some of their bigs that they were able to bring in last year, like an Ali Khalifa. However, I think this year, just on paper, a lot of this makes more sense. Flory Bidunga is a proven top flight center in the sport. And Jackson Shelstad is more of a better setup guy than I think what we got from, of course, Mikal Brown Jr., who obviously was hurt. And I think that is a major reason why we didn't see Louisville maybe live up to the potential that I felt they had going into this year in the preseason. And obviously, Shelstad is a little bit different than what you're getting from a Chucky Hepburn in Pat Kelsey's first year coaching the Cardinals. I think that Shelstad is really kind of just the best of both worlds between a Chucky Hepburn and a Mikal Brown Jr., where Shelstad can obviously facilitate and he can obviously look to score. Chucky was more of a defensive-minded guard. Mikal Brown was more of just a big guard who was athletic and was a one-and-done caliber talent that isn't officially declared for the draft yet. However, it's more than likely that we see Mikal Brown announce that any day now, any minute now, I should really add. I think Jackson Shelstad and Flory is just a great pairing to pluck out of the portal if you are Pat Kelsey or a Cardinals fan going into this next season. And when you consider the emphasis they placed on landing both these guys, having them both out to go watch a Louisville baseball game this past weekend with Pat Kelsey, they were able to get it done. Pat Kelsey closed the deal, and yes, these guys are being paid a lot of money to go suit up for the Cardinals this next season, but that is just the current landscape of the sport. You have to spend to win, and that is obviously the philosophy that Pat Kelsey and the Louisville Cardinals basketball program have adopted. Flory, you can argue whether he's being paid or whether he's worth the amount that he will be getting paid this year, which is, of course, upwards of $4.5 million, maybe $5 million. But again, you can't fault a kid when a school offers you that deal and they really set the market for what the other bigs in this transfer portal class, which I'll add is a very weak year for centers. You can't fault kids for chasing the bag when that is what they are being offered and that is what the market is being set at. So overall, I think these are two great ads. Yes, they are paying a lot of money for them, but if you want to really put yourself in a position to be able to win the ACC in a conference that Duke has dominated for the last several seasons now, this is what you have to do. And I think this is a great move to compete towards winning an ACC title the way I thought they should have going into this past season. And obviously it gives them a solid chance pending what they're able to bring in terms of the shooting they're going to surround these two guys with, but it's going to increase their national championship odds a lot more in the coming weeks, obviously, once everything all pans out. But that's going to take care of all my thoughts that I had on the announcement of Flory Bidunga and Jackson Shelstad committing to Louisville to play for Pat Kelsey this upcoming year. If you stuck around to the end, engage with the videos in any way you can, liking, subscribing, telling others about what we do here at the Court Storm. But until the next episode, I'll see you all next time.